everyone from within. Pero hindi naman po dapat yun ang tingnan natin. Ang titingnan po natin is kung kaya po ba to serve as Chief Justice and institute all the needed reforms. And I will try, of course, to heal all the wounds, especially those that arise from the impeachment. And I will try to really just have the strength of character to make sure that not only that I decide correctly or come up with the right decisions, but also to be able to fight for the right decision and to advocate for the adoption of the correct decisions by the rest of the court.
Kanina si Dean Bautista yon, di ba? Yung una-una. Sabi niya, mas maganda may term limit eh. Kasi bata rin siya. 48 years old siya. Sabi niya willing akong mag-sign ng waiver, 7 years lang ako. Para at least hindi ko yan, si Justice Peralta pwede pa maging Chief Justice, di ba? At yung iba pa. Willing rin po ba kayo? Kasi 18 years, para tagal-tagal ata.
Well, with due respect to Chair Andy ho, hindi naman ho ito political position na pwede yung mga sharing. It's a mandate, and since the Constitution prescribes the mandatory age, then we abide by that. But of course, no one can prevent any sitting justice or any sitting Chief Justice from resigning for some reasons or from severing, and of course, be subjected to, let's say, impeachment proceedings and be removed. But as far as the Constitution says, it is up to 70 years of age. It cannot be subjected to sharing.
Pag na-appoint po kayo ng Chief Justice sa kasakali, you intend to serve it until you reach the age of 70, 18 years from now?
God willing, and barring any significant developments in my life, then I intend to serve it.
Salamat, Mr. Chairman. Salamat, Secretary, Madam Secretary.
Salamat din po.
Attorney Cayusa.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon now, Secretary De Lima.
Hi.
Yes, I know. It's surprising because we meet under different circumstances. But nonetheless, I have to do my mandate. Now, ma'am, there are several issues against you, but I'd like to focus on matters that would affect the legal profession. For instance, there are sectors in the IBP that are invoking for a more independent bar organization, because currently the IBP is under the supervision of the Supreme Court. If you become Chief Justice, to what extent would you grant the IBP the independence, particularly with respect to guarding its own ranks, disciplining its own members, and other matters that would promote the legal profession?
I would still give it to the IBP to police its own ranks, to investigate and to file charges, and also to weed out the legal profession of undesirables. Now, I will have to leave it also to, but it has to remain with that institution. That institution has been envisioned to really improve the quality of service of lawyers, and also to attend to their particular needs and provide for benefits professionally, especially. So it has to stay, IBP. Its powers have to remain. Now the Supreme Court, of course, it has overall supervision. Now the Supreme Court still have also the power to discipline erring lawyers and undesirable lawyers. So I don't see much of a desired change. It's just really it's more of a question of putting the right people in the organization, people with vision, people with vigor and dedication to serve as inspiration, especially to the younger set of lawyers.
Thank you, ma'am. I ask that because there are many sectors who would want to follow other bar associations around the world that are totally independent of their Supreme Court or the equivalent of the Supreme Court. Moving on, you have been in the CHR, you're currently the Secretary of Justice. How have you shown that you can remain independent notwithstanding the views or the opposing view of the appointing authority?
Again, may I just paraphrase or reiterate what one of my answers earlier, that, well, I used to be a private practitioner specializing in election law. Then I was suddenly appointed as CHR chair, then suddenly appointed as the Secretary of Justice. As I said, each of these positions, we can say, have different perspectives, mindsets, and mind frames. Now, each of these positions would entail or demand a lot of challenges differently. But the matter of being independent, or the matter of having a high sense of independence, pretty much a question of the character of a person, and knowing fully well the responsibilities that he or she has when discharging when discharging a particular post. Now, I am an alter ego, and I am presumed to be in agreement with the policy directions of this administration, or most, if not all, of these policies. I would not have accepted this position if I do not agree with the thrust of this government for good governance and accountability. The matuwid na daan. It's a very laudable, very noble ideal. And in fact, it's something that I wish to also inculcate in the judiciary if and when I take this, or if I get this post. So I have no problem with that. It's in the character, it's in the various and multifarious tasks that have been assigned to me, both as a private practitioner and a public servant. I think I will be up to the task or the challenge. I know that people expect me to really discharge my mandate with the highest sense of independence.
Thank you, ma'am. With respect to the selection process of the members of the judiciary, having spent some time already with the Judicial and Bar Council, and if you become Chief Justice, you become ex officio chairman, what changes would you propose with the JBC in order to make the selection process more efficient, more credible?
Well, more efficient and credible selection process. Well, I think I need to really, my top of the mind idea there is to be totally oblivious or not consider political endorsements from politicians. I think any potential conflicts of interest or anything that would really put a question on your sense of impartiality or independence should be avoided. And one of these is really to do away, to discourage, if not completely, do away with political endorsements. Now, efficiency is a matter of really, well, possibly assigning particular specific committees or subcommittees within the JBC, and not just assign to the Secretariat some functions that are currently being discharged by the Secretariat. Now, it has to be a hands-on evaluation of the qualifications of the members, of the applicants or the aspirants for judicial posts.
In your opinion, has the JBC achieved the gender equality in the selection process of the members of the judiciary, particularly in the appellate courts?
Well, gender equality is not really a question of numbers. It's not a question of how many are male and how many are female members of the judiciary. Because indeed, gender equality is never meant to be really gender blindness. Gender equality does not really advocate for making special favors or favorably considering women over men, or that it does not mean that we have to embrace new stereotypes about men and about women. It doesn't mean that we tilt the scale in favor of women all the time. It's never meant to be that way. In the final analysis, it's always a question really of who is more suited for the job, who is more competent. In the final analysis, my view is that all human beings, all persons, regardless of genders, are human beings and with inalienable rights. And part of that right is to be treated fairly. So it's all just about qualifications and meritocracy. But I do notice, ma'am, that more and more women are getting appointed to the judiciary simply because they deserve to be so.
So they should also be considered for the position of Chief Justice. Now, for my last question, ma'am, you have shown your abilities in different capacities, but I think there are many who would like to ask this. Where would you consider your inclination, your personality, and your capabilities to be most appropriate? In the executive, in the judicial, or in the legislative branch of government?
In any of these positions. Although if I have to join the legislature, that means I have to first join politics and run for elective office. Now, in that sense, it's not as, it's not as compelling in the sense that I've never really been a politician. I don't know if I would fit as a politician. Now, right now, I had experience with the executive, or I have an experience with the executive by virtue of my position now. Although I have some powers which can be deemed quasi-judicial, attorney general powers, and when I was at the CHR, I presided over that collegial body in public hearings. And when I was a secretary or clerk of the House of Representatives Electoral Tribunal, then, I remember I drafted resolutions and decisions for consideration and approval by the members of the tribunal. Now, I think my personality, I easily adopt to the environment, and no problem with me in any of joining any of the three branches.
Thank you, ma'am, and I look forward to seeing you again under different circumstances. Thank you, Mr. Justice.
Thank you,
I have no further questions.
Attorney Mejia will now be the next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Magandang hapon po.
Magandang hapon. My seatmate in the
Seatmate
JBC.
in the JBC. Sisimulan ko po ang aking katanungan kaugnay sa panunungkulan ninyo sa DOJ. Ano po sa palagay ninyo, Madam Secretary, ang makabuluhang nagawa ninyo sa bilang DOJ Secretary kaugnay sa pagpapabilis po ng mga resolution, particularly ng mga criminal cases? Kasi po, mayroon pong perception yung iba na mayroong delay, there's delay in the resolution of cases because there is a lack of prosecutors, etc. Can you share with us your thoughts on that po?
There are various reasons why we cannot seem to achieve the ideal of really speedy disposition, meaning within the mandated time frame, yung zero tolerance. Although yun nga po ang aking target, dapat zero tolerance. Pero nakita ko nga po na there are several factors or reasons kung bakit. Nasabi nyo na po yung isa, na kulang po talaga kami ng prosecutors. If I'm not mistaken, ang vacancy rate namin is nearly 20 or 25%. Although meron hong mga nakabinbin ngayon na mga possible appointments of new prosecutors under the old law, and isusunod na rin ho namin yung under the new law, the National Prosecution Act. So isa po yun kasi right now po ang average load or case load ng aming mga prosecutors ay would stand at about 600 or 700 cases per year. That's the PI, that's the trial, and then meron pa ho tayo sa PI. But ang ano ho namin dyan is that we are coming up with new rules na rini-review ko na po na in the hope that we can help or we can achieve speedier resolution or disposition of cases.
Salamat po. Ang dami-dami pong pumapasok na text questions at saka sa Twitter na ibinigay sa akin na lahat may kaugnayan sa inyong alleged defiance, no? Yung pong issue na yon. Pero nabasa ko po ang inyong paliwanag, ang inyong liham, at ang posisyon ninyo doon ay there was no such defiance. So I think it will be a wrong premise to ask you that question if your position is that there was no defiance. In any case po, I would like you to give this opportunity to once again address po that particular issue against you, that the allegation against you that you have willfully defied a lawful order of the Supreme Court when you prevented the departure of the first couple. And should you be given the chance po of, for example, rethinking your position, will you do so? Thank you po.
Drink again.
Go ahead, Madam Secretary.
There is no defiance of the TRO. I did not willingly defy the TRO. It was not a question of defiance, but it was a matter of the former president hurriedly and prematurely trying to leave the country, first, in spite of the pendency of the cases, and second, in spite of the non-service as yet of an official copy of the TRO on the very day that the former president was trying to flee or trying to leave the country. Alam naman natin under the rules of court, ang service ay dalawa lang yan, yung personal service or substituted service. As of November 15, nung late afternoon nung November 15, nung inisyu po ng Supreme Court yung TRO, wala ho kaming natanggap. It was only the next day. And another thing is that, so it was more of a hurried attempt or premature attempt on the part of the former president. Na they claimed to have a copy of the TRO, but they seem to have failed to recognize that that TRO was conditional. Kaya nga po nung 3 days later, nung November 18, nagpulong uli yung nag-session or nagpulong uli ang Supreme Court, and precisely to tackle that matter. That as of November 15 and even 3 days later, wala pa hong full compliance with the conditions set forth in the TRO. So paano ko po ba masasabi na I defied that TRO? Why am I now being questioned or vilified for something that is not supported by the facts? So there is no defiance.
Thank you po for clarifying that. Those who have nominated you for the position attribute their motive to their nominating you to their desire to restore public confidence in the Supreme Court, and this is articulated in their nomination letters. Do you think there is indeed such a loss of confidence in the Supreme Court? And if there is, how will you restore that confidence?
It's really a difficult question. I would not want to make a very sweeping conclusion or statement on that. Rather, I would say that yes, there are times or there are actions on the part of the Supreme Court which tend to lose the people's faith and trust in the judiciary. Not only the members of the Supreme Court, but also the members of the judiciary as a whole. But there are moments, there are cases, there are actions on the part of the Supreme Court which are laudable and worthy of commendation from the general public. Now, yes, I think the challenge now for the new Chief Justice is to how to really restore complete trust and confidence of the general public. And I'd like to say that the Chief Justice, who is expected to regain or to improve the level of faith of the public in the judiciary, may not necessarily be or have that type of persona that conventional wisdom has prescribed for such a post. The Chief Justice, it's not enough for a Chief Justice to be the embodiment of, it's not enough for him to be perceived as something that is someone who is unreachable or untouchable or with limitless or unfathomable wisdom. No, it's not. People nowadays have shown the tendency to invest and be interested in the affairs of government, including the judiciary. And therefore, we need a Chief Justice who, while maintaining a high sense of independence and impartiality, is not perceived to be out of touch with the needs of the public. A Chief Justice, yes, must be wise, but wisdom is not necessarily equated to, really getting all the right answers or being fully acquainted with laws and jurisprudence, but more so that he is able to come up with well-reasoned decision and actions that are, at the very least, perceived by majority of the people as credible and bona fide. Thank you.
As my final question po, there is a notion, rightly or wrongly, that a Chief Justice or a member of the Supreme Court should have a masteral or a doctoral degree. Kasi yung nakalipas po, merong mga Harvard degree and other prestigious universities. Do you think a masteral or a graduate study degree should be considered in determining the competence of a Chief Justice? Thank you.
I missed that point. I wanted to say that also, that in my opinion, it's not a matter of having numerous academic credentials. It's not a matter of getting more diplomas. It's not a matter of writing books and be associated with institutional or educational institutions. To me, what is foremost, what is most vital is the character of the person. I can say that all of us, all the nominees for this crucial post are, in their own right, qualified. Some would have a certain advantage over the other, but definitely qualified. Each of us has his or her own weaknesses and strengths. So what would be most crucial in terms of perceiving what type of a Chief Justice one can be is his or her character. It's actually a rare breed. Thank you.
Thank you. Good luck po. And thank you, Mr. Chair.
Salamat din po.
Justice Lagman?
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Secretary, good morning or good afternoon. So, Secretary, what do you think is the advantage, if any, of having a lady like you sit as a Chief Justice?
Good question, but difficult question in light of the position I articulated earlier, the gender equality, about the gender equality.
Yeah.
But, you know, as a lady Chief Justice, I think I'd like to say, this may be a bit cliche, but I'd like to say that I would have the passion to be able to discharge the mandate conscientiously and with fealty to the Constitution and the rule of law.
Okay. So if you will be appointed, you will